views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WVIH, its board, staff, or underwriters.
Good day. You are listening to Ability Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Amelia Headley-Lamont of the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. And today I'm here to talk with a couple of individuals from a very exciting program that is sponsored by the Virgin Islands Housing Authority. Our guest today is Emmanualla Perez-Cassius. She's the director of the Resident Wellness and Empowerment Department, that's a mouthful, for the VI Housing Authority. And she is joined by Kurtice Lewis, who is a marketing and communications specialist for the Resident Wellness and Empowerment Program. We're going to learn about that today. So good day to you both.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, and I'm so glad to know that the Housing Authority is coming up with these programs so that it's not necessarily an adversarial relationship between a landlord and a tenant.
Yes.
That's from the world I used to come from, so it's nice to hear that things are, evolving. So tell us about your organization and what's in store for the audience.
So the Virgin Islands Housing Authority, as many people in the Virgin Islands know, is something that came into reality in the Virgin Islands in 1962, right? It was sworn in, the legislature made it happen, and here we are years later saying we've got to ensure that we're serving our residents in different ways. Over the last 60 years, they have served in many different capacities, whether we were supporting the asset management department initially, ensuring that residents remain in their compliance for their lease. Then we transitioned from there and we started making sure that our residents are having activities that we are providing for them. And here we are now in the evolution to strategy. We are strategically supporting households and ensuring that through the department, Resident Wellness and Empowerment Department, our residents are being connected to all of the resources that our wider community has available to ensure that our communities, our resident households, create a level of economic mobility and wellness for themselves.
Well, as a former tenant advocate, that's shocking, and I'm a little suspicious. But let's talk a little bit. First of all, let's talk about the Virgin Islands Housing Authority briefly, and then we can go into the specifics of your program.
Okay. So, like I said, 1941, the birth of the Virgin Islands Housing Authority. Currently, we've got over 1,900 residents living with us in the community, and we also have the Housing Choice Voucher Program that has over 1,400 residents that are a part of there. We have many programs to help support our residents' economic mobility. We have the FSS program, which is the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, and we also have the Section 3 program, which helps to create a level of workforce development for our residents in a way that we help pay them. They develop a skill, whether it's under construction, they're developing their own academic skills, or they're doing some on-the-job training so that they can transition from just being VIHA residents and become VIHA employees.
So you're saying that the VI Housing Authority has programs that can assist a resident to gain employment? Is that what I'm hearing?
To gain workforce skills.
Okay.
And then they can go for employment.
Okay. How does that work? I'm just curious.
So under Section 3, we have 3 areas. The Virgin Islands Housing Authority is transitioning a whole lot of the construction of our properties. So we have construction sites happening. And so we're utilizing our residents to help develop those sites under the Section 3 program. We're also helping them. You need to go back to school, but you can't afford to not work.
Right.
So we give you these 6 months, up to 2 years to be able to go back to school, and we help provide you with a level of subsidy through the Section 3 program. And then, of course, you have the on-the-job training. So we're always building the VIHA family and utilizing individuals who live within our communities. Seems like a streamlined approach to making sure that we as an authority stay strong, and we also have strong residents that have an opportunity to have employment.
Wow.
So you
had no idea.
Fill out the Section 3 application, you get interviewed, you go through onboarding, then we go through the training. You leave from the training between the 6 months to the 2 years, depending on where you are in your workforce, and you transition into the wider community.
This is just, to me, shocking. So,
Well, Section 3 is a spin-off from Youth Build. And I don't know, you have history with VIHA, so you know that we tried the Youth Build program that was brought up. They did well, but we wanted to make sure that we still have a level of workforce development that's just not limited to Youth Build. And so we've spread it out, and we continue to grow.
Okay. Do you find these programs have been popular with the residents?
I feel like the program is building and developing with the residents. Like you, a lot of people didn't know about it. And our department is a brand new department. We have only been here 2 years.
Right.
And so in the last 2 years, we've been using Kurtice, we've been using Ajani, and we've been making sure that our residents know more about it, and we're making sure that they take part in it and take advantage of the opportunities.
Right. So, Kurtice, you are a marketing specialist. What does that entail?
Well, piggybacking off of what Emmanuella just said, my main responsibility and focus is on getting all of these programs that we listed and many more opportunities that are available to our residents out there, right? Emmanuella has nicknamed me the messenger.
Okay, good.
So that's the role that I, take seriously as the messenger, and anything that comes across my desk, I make sure that I get it out there to the residents by means of social media, because that's the era that we live in now.
Right.
We have our webpage that we're developing that's going to be launching in about a month or so.
Okay.
And we have our monthly newsletter called the VIHA's Voice that goes out to the residents as well, which we're continuously trying to build up our database, because one of the challenges that we're facing is residents come, they have a new phone number or a new email, and they don't really necessarily update it with their property managers right away. And then now we're trying to get that backlog of information up to date. So, different means, and we still have the traditional means, if we go door to door and knock on the door, if it came down to that situation. We have our resident councils that are also involved in getting that message out there as well too. So we rope in the community, and we have that approach where the message is coming from us, but also from the residents to residents as well.
What's the name of the newsletter again?
VIHA's Voice.
Vita's Voice?
VIHA's.
Oh, VIHA. VIHA. Okay, Voice. Okay,
Yes.
nice. Resident councils. Is there a resident council for each housing community? How is that structured?
So the aim is to eventually have a resident council in every community. We are 6 in now.
Okay.
Remember, we just started.
Right.
So resident councils are elected. We use outside individuals to host the election. The election is done like a regular Virgin Islands election, according to the same stipulations. You must be over 18 to vote. You must be a resident of the Virgin Islands Housing Authority, and you must be in good standing to be a part of the council.
Right.
And those individuals are selected by their community. They go out, they canvass, they put up their flyers, they ask. The positions are president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and assistant secretary. What is different, and resident councils are not new to VIHA.
Right.
VIHA has been using resident councils,
Yes.
but what we've decided to do is fund resident councils.
Okay.
So resident councils are funded based on the occupied units within their community. We take that same money that was designed for resident services, and we give it to the hands of the individuals who know what's happening in their community. Money is drawn down through the authority every quarter, and money cannot be spent without a vote. We teach them Robert rules. We ensure that they're all certified in the Lieutenant Governor's office. They have their bank account. So it's a real nonprofit operation within the Virgin Islands, and it's done 2 great things. It works as a liaison between the authority and the residents, right? But it also works as a nonprofit, so they can secure their own funding. They can reach out to other entities within the Virgin Islands and partner with them without having to go through the Virgin Islands Housing Authority. So they're separate but still connected. And that's what's new. We support you. We make sure you get your elections in. We train you in everything that you need to operate. We give you the funding, and then we ask you to fly and keep us wrapped in the work that you're doing. And that has, our aim is to ensure that residents, communities are getting what they ask for, not necessarily what we think is best for them. So we're cutting that line in between the authority and the actual services of the residents.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand correctly. You're saying there's 6 councils now in
Right now,
existence? Okay, and that's territory-wide?
Territory-wide.
Okay.
Would you like me to name them?
Sure, why not?
Kurtice is going to love this. So we've got active resident councils in Williams Delight. When I say active, they're already registered in the Lieutenant Governor's office. They've already been trained, and they're already begin accessing their funding. And that would be Williams Delight, Oswald Harris Court, and Kerwin Terrace.
Okay.
Then we've got our phase 2 elections that are already elected. They're registered in our Lieutenant Governor's office, but we haven't finished training them, and we haven't started funding them yet.
Okay.
And that would be Paul M. Pearson, Aro Diaz, and Bavoni. right? Those
All
are the
right.
three. Those are the six.
Okay.
And then we've got a phase 3 elections coming up next quarter.
Okay.
And that will be in the Candido,
Guadalupe.
Guadalupe community.
Uh-huh.
That would also be in the Marley Homes.
Mm-hmm.
And in St. Thomas, we're going for H.H. Burke.
Okay, very good.
So by the end of 2025, there will be active resident councils in every community across the territory. And these resident councils will be operating. So please, community,
Yeah.
listen out for them, reach out to them, and partner with them as they continue to support their community.
That would be excellent. That would be excellent. So let's talk about your program, Bright Paths.
Yes.
Which is 2 years old, you
2
say?
years old.
All right. So let's dig into that.
Okay. Bright Path is the model that we're using. We told you that we're now working with residents from a more strategic way. We're capturing data of the households through our wellness assessments. We're also encouraging residents to increase your own household wellness and create a level of economic mobility. There's a system of triage. So if your household is only receiving one income, then you're a vulnerable household. And we're going to work closer with you, because if one thing happens, the whole household is now
Right.
totally in jeopardy of having any income coming in.
Right.
Or you can be a stable household. That means you only have one household, one income coming in, but this income has been coming in over a period of time sustainably. Individuals who probably work for GVI, they live within our communities. We know for sure they're going to get a check every 2 weeks. Those are stable. We check up on you monthly. We make sure that your wellness is good, and we help to support the areas. You might have people coming in that need academic growth. You know, your 18-year-olds are transitioning. You need connection. Or you have someone in your household that has a disability and they're aging out of the education system now. We would connect them to you, right?
Right.
And we would connect them to whatever other resources, Voc Rehab, whatever else there is in the community to help transition them. And then we have our stable families. These families have more than one income coming in. They are mostly not living on subsidies. So that means they probably have subsidy because they live in the Virgin Islands Housing Authority, but there's no food stamps. They're meeting their family and household needs strictly off of the income that they're making for themselves. And with those households, we're checking quarterly. How's everything going? We give them a lot of updates on new opportunities in the Virgin Islands. Hey, the SLICE program is here now. Hey, there's this program here now. We check in and we give them those updates, and we use Kurtice to ensure that that information gets out to them accurately and continue connecting them. So Bright Path is truly just about creating economic pathways through the 8 dimensions of wellness.
All right. Now, you said something that I got to follow up on. You said SLICE program. What is that?
Oh, the SLICE program is it's a new program through Housing Finance Authority that's
Okay.
helping people become homeowners. And that's a new program. Lots of ways that people don't know that that option is there, and the things that they need to get into that. So we make those partnerships, and under our department, we start to get that information, and then we disseminate it. And we
Okay.
use our wellness assessment to target the households that we know you've got what it takes to qualify for this program, and we'll reach out to you. And if you want it, you go for it. That's the
right.
thing. We're not forcing anybody. This is your wellness. You might say, I am fine right here in RDS till the day I pass.
Right.
And that's fine too.
Okay.
It's just to ensure, though, that your wellness and your economic wellness is not tied to subsidies that's connected to the community.
Okay.
Because you can't be well if you're depending on money or resources from somebody else. We see it all the time. Congress is cutting, chopping.
Yes.
And so we don't want our households to be vulnerable and in a position to not be able to sustain themselves.
Okay. Folks, I know this is a lot
I
to
know.
absorb, but let me mention this, is that if you miss any portion of this program, it will be posted on our website, which is at drcvi.org. That's drcvi.org. I want to tease from you more. What do we mean by wellness? I usually associate that with health, but it seems like it has a broader application.
We talk about this all the time in our department. So health is in the
Wellness.
creation of
Okay.
Bright Path.
Okay.
The differentiated health as something that a doctor can do a physical thing on to determine where you are in your physical health. Doctors do tests. In your mental health, they do tests, but in your emotional wellness, there's not a physical test you can take for that. But there are things that you can put in place to decipher where you are for yourselves. Those are personal things. Wellness is a personal venture versus health being an outside support venture. So we're trying to help to empower you to look at your personal selves. What does my social wellness look like? And it's funny, when I was being trained in this 2 years ago, the first question that was posed to me at the director at the time was saying, if I had to ask you right now, how is your spiritual wellness, Emmanuella? What would you say? I was like, well, my goodness, nobody's ever asked me that before. What does that look like for myself? And it made me start to think, I wonder how many other people never get an opportunity to ponder what wellness looks like for their household, for themselves. And that's what this is about. We go through the assessment and we ask you certain questions around these areas that allow you to think for yourself. What does that look like? If I was well spiritually, would I be praying every week? Would I be a part of a church? Maybe I would just be out in nature, sitting down, meditating every day. What does that look like for you? And we document that and we help give it back to you, which gives you an opportunity to think for yourself and really make moves and plans around how do I get well in this area?
So, Kurtice, how do you promote this vision, so to speak? I mean, you talked about social media, but I'm sure there are other ways in which you can try and get that.
One of the most immediate ways in which that is being done is our coordinators work directly with our residents, right? And they have to perform these wellness assessments. And whenever they do these wellness assessments, they connect with the community partners, right? So these community partners, I personally have a connection with. Well, I try to build up my portfolio anyway, right? Where I could stay in contact with them all the time and find out, what do you have going on this month? What events do you have around the corner? What programs and initiative that our residents should be aware of, right? And then they send me that information and I send it to them via either the newsletter or upload it to our social media accounts or I forward it to our resident wellness coordinators and then they're able to get the information to our residents. So we keep that streamlined information going constantly, right? From our partners directly to our residents and our coordinators, so everything works in tandem and the information just keeps getting disseminated to our residents on a regular basis.
Right, because I was going to ask you, do you have social workers? So I guess it's a coordinator.
Yes.
Okay.
And you know why they're called coordinators versus social workers. So social workers give you direct services. We don't provide direct services. We coordinate with all of the services that's already available. Relationship is the new revolution. And so we're using our relationships to ensure that they stay connected. We can bring this right back to how we got here. Kurtice was the lead on that. We had a resident coordinator that did assessments and realized, wait a minute, we have households that have disabilities or children with disabilities that need help for advocacy.
Right.
Well, who do we go to? It started us internally pondering. We reached out to Ms. Carr, and we also reached out to another nonprofit, and we worked together, and eventually the other nonprofit kind of moved over to where she's going to be useful, right?
Okay.
But we stayed in contact with the Disability Rights Center, and we've been building an approach like, what the people with disabilities have services and resources to. How do we get you to them? And here we are now today, ready to talk about a collaboration and a partnership that's going to ensure that we strategically work together to get back to those communities that we already know exist through our assessments.
Right.
Yes, and it's about inclusion too. Is a portion of the population that gets overlooked a lot. And especially when it pertains to marketing, you see flyers or posters or ads that go out with people that are able-bodied or fully functional, but you never hardly see anything with someone in a wheelchair or needing assistance or someone who's reading impaired or whatever the case is. So we try to do those things and implement that in our marketing and communication to let these residents know that we do see you and you're not being left out.
Right. No, that's very important.
And we're looking for grants that help to ensure that they can live safely in place, because if we didn't know you existed and the things that you need, so we're looking at grants that help with doorbells that have multi-sensory approaches, right? So that we can put it on those households that we know there's someone in this household that's visually impaired, and bright lights blinking will allow them to know somebody's outside. Right. Kurtice is working on ways to ensure that we stay connected through call lines, through text messages, through multi approaches where you can receive a call, you can get a text. This is happening. There's an emergency coming up. The lines are down. We're continuously trying to make sure that we stay connected and utilize all of the outside resources to get the services to these individuals.
Well, you mentioned that. It reminds me of the importance of like VI alert and how do you let somebody know who may not be connected to those kinds of services.
Exactly.
Right?
And we inform those spaces.
Okay.
So part of our partnership, is getting out there and making sure that we're at the table where these discussions are happening. Coming to your table has blown our minds in so many ways because you're helping us with the language, making sure that we're up to date on the IDEA laws, making sure that we understand there's certain resources that they qualify for just because they're determined.
Right.
And making sure that our 504 accommodations are met for those residents because you know.
Right.
And we partner with you and now you're telling us.
Right. And we will formalize that quote unquote partnership as soon as we get it through the necessary channels, because we know how that can be an important piece as well. But I'm very excited about what you're doing. What are some future activities do you see for your group, Bright Paths?
For our Bright Path is the model. The group is the Resident Wellness and Empowerment Department, and we just see ourselves continuing partnering and building. The strategy is find out who we have, know what our communities look like, and keep your ear connected to the ground. Stay in the loop with VIHA is what we're saying. And when we stay in the loop with each other, then it's an unbreakable continuation of services and outreach and providing the supports that our wider community has to offer.
Now, in a previous conversation with you, you had mentioned that there was a program where you would set aside funds, escrow funds. Can you explain a little bit of that? I think people's minds will be blown when they hear
that's
about
the
that.
section. That's the FSS program.
Okay.
Family self-sufficiency.
Uh-huh.
And currently we've got 29 participants in that program territory-wide.
Uh-huh.
That program works for individuals that's under our housing voucher choice program and under our PHA, Public Housing Authority programs.
Okay.
And individuals can reach out to our FSS coordinator, Ms. Santoya Franklin. They conduct a pre-evaluation. The biggest need, the only thing they need to have is a level of personal desire and want to be able to be self-sufficient. She works with them to create a plan. Under that plan, once you are qualified and you make it in, you have now the opportunity to take your rental income, any income that you make after you start the program. Of course, it's tied to your rent.
Right.
That money that you are paying to your rent after, so your baseline, let's say you join a program when you're paying $0 and 0 month for rent, and then you get a job and now your rent goes up to $250. Well, that $250 is going to go into an escrow for you for the next 5 to 7 years. And as long as you continue to keep working your plan, we give you back that money at the end of your FSS. We have a graduation, we invite the senators out, and we celebrate the fact that you have accomplished your own goals. And your goals are your goals. We're not saying you have to go buy a house, you have to finish school, you have to, no, we're saying if you say you're going to buy a house, if you're saying I'm joining this program because I want my escrow money to go as my down payment, then that is what we expect that you're going to do. But you don't have to once you receive your check. It's your money, and hopefully at the end of the 5 years, your plan for yourself that you've created is completed, and then we give it back to you. I'll tell you in my...
With interest?
There's no interest.
Oh, there's no interest. Okay. Just checking.
What is there is a lump sum.
Okay.
And I was blown away for my first graduation when we handed over someone a check for $32,000.
Wow.
Because in all my good years of
Yeah.
working and doing well,
I know.
I have never saved $32,000 to say,
Yeah.
let me go withdraw this money and go purchase
Right.
something.
Sure.
Or put down an investment.
Yeah.
I've never had it. So for me, the FSS program is really an opportunity for you to utilize your own money in the future. And if you don't understand how big that is, you've really got to talk to people like me in the community who's never had an opportunity to be a part of a
Right.
program like this, have been trying to save and trying to make it just like you.
Right. No, that's important. That's
So we
very
encourage
important.
everyone to take advantage. We have up until 50 slots.
Okay.
We're at 29 right now. And the good thing is, people are always graduating, right? 5 years is always somebody's 5 years.
Right.
And so there's always space. And we encourage more people to take advantage of that. And if you can hear us, no matter what your ability or disability is, you qualify for FSS. And you have an opportunity to plan your own future and utilize your income, your household rent, to come back and be a part of your success in the future.
Now, FSS stands for?
Family self-sufficiency.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite a novel approach. As we know, there is a housing crisis. Most units are filled, and I recall even back many, many years ago, there was quite a waiting list. By and large, any idea what's the average occupancy rate for an individual household in VI housing?
When you say individual,
Like how many years?
the person stays in there?
Yes.
Oh, depending on the district, one, and two, it's over 5, over 10, maybe. In some cases, we got individual households living in there for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, it goes back to the overall Virgin Islands housing crisis.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to inform people, because we have a lot of programs in the Virgin Islands that people are not taking advantage of, not because anything more than they just don't know.
Right.
They don't know that access point, and sometimes it feels very complicated. Even for us when we're doing our back work, we're like, oh my gosh, how many times we're going to call this agency to get an answer?
Right.
Could you imagine for someone who has limited time to do that? Like,
Right.
I'm focused on calling you 10 times. Everyone does not have that opportunity to sit here and call you 10,
Right.
15, 20
No,
times
that's
just to
true.
get an answer.
Just to get an
So we
answer.
do a lot of that legwork, and then we pass it on to you.
All right. Well, pressure's on you, Kurtice. All right. If somebody wants to know more, we only have a couple minutes left, about the Resident Wellness and Empowerment Department, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, you could email me directly
Okay.
at kjlewis at vihousing.org. As I mentioned before, we do have our webpage that would be functioning and up. We're looking at the end of June. It's built. We had a review, and we've noticed that we're seeing some areas that we would definitely love to include in the news and the webpage, so that people could be able to get access to this information, and we don't want to leave anyone out, especially just launching. Obviously, we could build on as we go, but right now, you could go to vihousing.org.
Okay.
That's the overall website for
Okay.
the authority, and then our webpage will be linked to vihousing.org. So anyone that needs access to any of this information that we're giving out today could go directly there, or in the interim, you could just email me.
Okay. We've got 30 seconds. Is there a phone number we can call?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can call 340-201-5068. That is my direct line. And you can get in contact with any of our coordinators. Once you give me a call, I can pass that on to you. And of course, visit our sites. We've got communities that you can go and knock on the door, and they'll be able to tell you about where you can meet more services and get more access to information.
Thank you so much to you both. It's been a blast learning about your work.
Yes.
You're commended. Folks, thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.